Joining me now for Front Page Politics, reporter for Real Clear Politics, Erin McPike, and politics writer for Roll Call, Shira Toeplitz. Hello, girls. Good to see you both.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So, all right, Erin, I'll begin with you here. We heard the president touting the economy there. Now, the latest jobs report shows 227,000 jobs were added last month, with the unemployment rate holding steady at 8.3%. At what point will Republicans have a hard time trying to maneuver on the economy?
Well, you know, you heard Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney both deflecting on that in the last day or so. Mitt Romney is fixating on the 8.3% unemployment number and saying that in President Obama's first term, that unemployment rate hasn't gone below 8%, and that's what he promised. So he's not talking about the jobs growth numbers. He's talking about the unemployment rate. Newt Gingrich instead said, how can they be talking about this jobs growth numbers when instead gas prices are still so high, and I'll get that down to $2.50 a gallon. So they're deflecting. Yeah,
but don't you think it's mostly about trends? I mean, if people can see sort of incremental movement and a direction that doesn't seem to be veered from.
Absolutely. You know, and I think that that's the advantage that the president will have, and that's why they're deflecting, because the trends are inspiring some confidence in the American people right now.
How about this, Shira? Do you get any sense from inside the GOP campaigns about concern over possibly having to now alter their campaign messages because of the trending economy?
I think there's certainly some trepidation on their part right now. Look, no one roots for the economy to get worse, all right? But I think this new economic news in the last couple months of generally positive economic news is a problem for Republican presidential candidates because it undercuts at their singular message, which is the president is not a good steward of the economy. And that's difficult. But we still have a long way to go until November. A lot can happen in the economy in a month, and a lot can happen in the next 6, 7, 8 months before the election. We'll see how the economy is going to do in October, and then we'll know who's really going to be ahead in the presidential race.
So on the heels of that, then, Shira, do you think it is somewhat risky to use the America's Coming Back slogan at this point?
I think it's a little bullish. I do. I think it's a little bullish. I think the economy has improved, but it isn't a huge comeback yet. We're not there. We're not anywhere near out of this hole yet. I think the president will probably regret some of these more bullish and, I think, confident remarks he's made over the last couple months in October if the economy continues basically at this current level of improvement, which isn't great, but it's good.
Okay. Sit tight, you two. We're going to get to some GOP politics in just a second. But right now, more front page politics. A big day for the GOP in Kansas. Republicans are caucusing in the state right now. 40 delegates are up for grabs. The U.S. Virgin Islands are also holding GOP caucuses. Mitt Romney won today's caucuses in the Northern Mariana Islands, and Guam each has 9 delegates. Today, Rick Santorum is campaigning in Texas and Missouri. He spent time in Kansas Friday criticizing Mitt Romney for the health care program Romney implemented as governor of Massachusetts.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we already have one president who doesn't tell the truth to the American people. We don't need another nominated by our party to do the same.
Mitt Romney does not have any campaign stops scheduled today, but he is looking ahead to Tuesday's contest in Mississippi and Alabama. He spoke Friday in Birmingham, Alabama, taking aim at President Obama's handling of the economy.
How about this? How about $15.5 trillion being passed on to our kids? That's something wrong with President Obama. We got to stop that. If I'm president, we're going to cut federal spending, we're going to cap federal spending, and we're finally going to have a balanced budget.
And Newt Gingrich is campaigning today in Alabama. He spoke just a short time ago in Mobile, poking fun at Mitt Romney.
It's probably appropriate for me this morning to point out that, unlike one of my competitors, I have had grits before.
Well, join me again, Erin McPike and Shira Toeplitz. So, Shira, I'll begin with you this time. Santorum is expected to win Kansas. Does winning Kansas equal any momentum?
I think it helps Santorum. It certainly doesn't hurt him. I think he could use the delegates that he will win, assuming he wins Kansas like we expect. But this is about expectations at this point, Alex, and we expect Rick Santorum to win Kansas, so he will. I know my colleagues and I are really more looking forward to the contest later this week in Alabama that will give us a better idea of who's really in this presidential game, and if we are getting down to 2 final candidates really in these next couple weeks.
Yeah. Erin, let's move on to Tuesday's GOP primaries, where Mitt Romney appears to be holding his own there. there. A couple of polls to go through. First in Alabama, he's in second place, trailing Newt Gingrich by just 1 point. Look at that, 21 to 20%. Then when you take a look at the latest poll from Mississippi, Romney's only trailing Gingrich there by 4 points. That's 35 to 31%. So we keep hearing, Aaron, about the South not being Romney territory. Do you think this is the Romney camp lowering expectations, or do you think his competitors are being overly optimistic?
I think it's both. And actually, you just pointed 2 polls, but there have been a number of polls out in Alabama in the last week, and they have been all over the place, and Mitt Romney has actually been leading in some of them. Now, the Romney campaign is trying to mobilize their volunteers in the South to go to Alabama because Alabama is actually a little bit better of a state for him than Mississippi. We think of them as the same. They're down south. They have the same demographics, but the way that they are geographically, Alabama has more city centers, and that it will be easier for Mitt Romney to win. And I think it's very possible that he could win in Alabama, and that might go a long way towards shutting down the nomination process.
Yeah, now, Shira, just yesterday, Rick Santorum suggested this is going to be a 2-man race after the GOP primaries in the South. The question is, will Santorum be one of those two, because Gingrich is leading him in both polls?
I'm sure Santorum meant it would be just him and Mitt Romney, but I think that's a good question. You know, I don't rule anything out after this crazy presidential, this bizarre cycle we've had with candidates rotating in and out as Mitt Romney's top competitor. But I think Santorum has a better chance of being one of the last two than Newt Gingrich at this point, and that's because of momentum, which leads to money. Right now, I think Santorum has more access to kind of a conservative donor base than Newt Gingrich does. Newt Gingrich right now is kind of running on financial fumes in many ways and is being propped up by a Las Vegas casino mogul. That's how he's going to keep his campaign going. And once Sheldon Adelstein decides, you know what, Newt Gingrich, you've had enough, then I think Newt Gingrich's campaign is over.
So I guess the question to both of you then is, who's going to drop out and when? Shira, you can have a first crack at that.
I think I would expect a greater call for Newt Gingrich to drop out probably over the next couple of weeks. We've already heard some people chiming in, some conservative leaders calling for him to drop out. I think you'll hear those continuing and a snowball effect coming over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, because he's splitting the conservative vote there with Rick Santorum. I mean, Rick Santorum. So,
yeah.
Okay, Aaron, your thoughts?
I absolutely agree with Shira on that. And, you know, Politico has a very interesting story out this morning about how Newt Gingrich was up till 2 a.m. dancing with his wife in a hotel lobby, and it seemed like the campaign was coming to an end already. So I think Shira's exactly right, and the calls will be for Gingrich first to drop out.
Okay, Aaron McPike, Shira Toeplitz, good to see you both. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Again, we have 40